The night was silent. Only the broken ship made a faint crackling sound. John, a human explorer, sat on the edge of the wreck, his hands shaking. The stars above him were strange, larger than the ones he remembered from Earth. The air felt heavy, filled with scents he had never known before. Every shadow in the jungle seemed alive, and every sound whispered danger. He looked around the twisted metal of his ship, knowing he was alone. Food was limited, water even less, and the strange jungle called to him like a trap. John knew if he stayed with the wreck he would die. He had to move. He had to find help. Even if help did not exist on this alien world, the ground was soft, glowing with faint blue light under his boots. Plants swayed without wind, as if they watched him pass. He tightened his jacket and held the broken metal rod like a weapon. Fear ran in his chest, but something stronger pushed him forward. Survival. He walked for hours, the jungle whispering, animals unseen but felt. Then suddenly he froze. From behind the tall silver leaves, someone was watching him. Two bright eyes shone in the dark. Not human, not animal, something else. John gripped his rod tighter, his breath held. The eyes moved closer, slow, careful, testing him, and then she stepped into the dim light. An alien girl, tall and slender, her skin pale silver with a faint glow. Her hair flowed like dark water, and her eyes were bright as twin moons. She looked at him not with hate, but with curiosity. For a moment, the jungle itself went silent, as if bowing to her presence. John took a step back, his heart racing. The girl raised her hand slowly, showing it was empty. Her lips moved, but no sound came. Instead, she touched the ground with her fingers, drawing a strange symbol in the glowing soil. John watched, confused but unable to look away. She looked at him again, her voice finally breaking the silence. It was soft, melodic, like music carried by wind. "You are not from here," she whispered. John could not answer, his throat dry. He only nodded. The alien girl tilted her head, studying him like a puzzle. Then she did something strange. She touched her own chest and then pointed at him. It was not just a gesture, it was a message. John felt a chill. He did not understand her language, but he felt the weight of her eyes. He realized she was not attacking, not running, but choosing to approach in this hostile jungle. This alien girl was the first living being to face him without claws or teeth. It was the beginning of something he did not yet understand. But the jungle around them was restless. From deep inside the trees, a roar echoed, low and heavy. The girl's eyes flashed with fear, but only for a second. She looked at John, motioned with her hand and whispered again, "Come." Before John could answer, she turned and vanished into the jungle shadows. Her glowing silver skin disappeared among the trees like a fading light. John stood frozen, torn between fear and instinct. He could stay with the wreck, or he could follow her into the unknown. The roar came again, closer this time, shaking the leaves above. He made his choice. Clutching the metal rod, John stepped after her. Each step took him deeper into the strange world. He did not know if she was friend or enemy, savior or trap. But he knew one thing. She was not ordinary, and she had chosen him. And for reasons he could not explain. He felt his destiny change with her arrival. The night grew darker, but her faint glow led the way. The air grew colder, but her presence gave him strength. The jungle roared with secrets, but her whispers guided him through. John, a lost human on an alien world, was no longer alone. He had met the alien girl, and nothing would ever be the same again. John followed the alien girl deeper into the jungle. Her glow was faint, but enough to guide him through the darkness. The sounds of the night grew louder. Whispers of creatures moving just beyond sight. John's heart pounded, but he knew turning back was no longer an option. The girl had chosen him, and he could not understand why. She moved quickly, but gracefully, as if every tree and stone knew her path. John stumbled behind, his boots sinking into glowing soil. The roar from earlier faded slowly, replaced by the rhythm of flowing water. Soon they reached a clearing where an underground stream shimmered with pale light. The alien girl stopped and looked back at him, her eyes sharp yet calm, without words. She motioned for him to kneel near the stream. Confused but tired, John obeyed. The girl touched the water with her fingers, letting the ripples shine across her hand. Then she drew another strange symbol on the wet ground. It glowed brighter than before, as if alive. John frowned, trying to understand. "Why are you showing me this?" he whispered. The girl tilted her head, her lips moving. This time her words carried weight, heavy and strange. "Ritual," she said, her voice like broken echoes of an ancient song. John froze. Ritual. The word was familiar, but her meaning was unclear. Was it religion, magic, or survival? The girl stepped closer, her eyes glowing like silver fire. She touched his hand, her skin colder than he expected. Then she placed his hand into the water, pressing it down until the glowing ripples circled his arm. For a moment John felt his skin burn, not with pain but with energy. It surged inside him, flowing like fire and ice together. His breath caught, his vision blurred. He pulled his hand back quickly, trembling. "What was that?" he asked, his voice shaking. The girl stepped back, her expression unreadable. She touched her chest again, then pointed at him. Her voice whispered one word that pierced the air. "Bond." John shook his head, his heart racing. He did not understand her culture, her symbols, her ritual, but he could feel the seriousness in her tone. This was not a game. This was not simple magic. It was something sacred, something forbidden. The clearing grew colder as silence wrapped around them. Suddenly, John noticed carvings on the nearby rocks. Shapes of beings holding hands, circles of light between them. Some images showed triumph. Others showed destruction. It was a warning carved into stone. A story too old to remember. The girl walked to the carvings and touched one figure with her glowing hand. The stone shimmered as if alive. She looked back at John, her eyes filled with meaning. "Only few," she said slowly, struggling with his language. "Bond. Forbidden. But strong." John's breath slowed. So it was true. This ritual was rare, maybe even dangerous. But she had chosen him for it. Why? Before he could ask, a strange sound broke the silence. A hiss, sharp and venomous. John turned quickly and saw shapes moving at the edge of the clearing. Dark figures, crawling low, with eyes like burning coals. The girl's eyes widened, her body tense. She whispered one word to him: "Enemies." John gripped his broken rod tightly. The creatures circled them, their hiss echoing like snakes. The girl moved closer to him, her glowing hand brushing against his arm. John felt a surge of strength, strange and powerful. The same energy from the stream now pulsed inside him. The first creature leaped forward, its teeth sharp and glowing. John swung his rod with all his strength. The hit cracked the creature's jaw, sending it crashing into the glowing soil. Another lunged from the side, but the alien girl raised her hand. Light burst from her palm, blinding the beast and forcing it back. They stood back to back, human and alien, fighting together. John could not explain it, but he felt connected to her. Every move she made echoed in his body. Every strike he gave carried more strength than before. The bond was real. When the last creature fell, the clearing grew silent again. John's chest heaved as he gasped for air. He looked at her, still glowing faintly, her eyes locked on his. "Why me?" he whispered. The girl stepped closer, placing her hand on his chest. Her voice was soft but certain. "Because destiny chooses." John felt his knees weaken. He was caught in something far bigger than survival. This ritual was not just about trust, not just about culture. It was about power, and now he was part of it. The girl looked at the glowing carvings again, her voice trembling. "If bond, strong, both survive," she said. Then she paused, her eyes darkening. "If bond, break, both die." John froze. He finally understood. This was not just a ritual, it was a chain. His fate was now tied to hers, in life or death. The forbiddance ritual had begun, and there was no turning back. Asterisk. The night air was heavy, carrying the scent of strange flowers and smoke from the fight. John sat on a stone, his breath rough, his body still trembling from the battle. The alien girl stood nearby, her silver glow dimmer than before. She was watching him carefully, as if waiting for his next move. The silence between them was sharp, almost louder than the fight had been. John looked at his hand, still glowing faintly from the water ritual. The warmth inside him felt unnatural, as if his blood had changed. He wanted to ask her 100 questions, but words felt too small for what had just happened. Finally, he broke the silence. "What did you do to me?" The alien girl stepped closer, her expression calm but serious. She pointed to his chest, then to her own. Her lips formed a single word. Soft but heavy. "Bond." John shook his head. Confused and uneasy, he had trusted her enough to follow. Trusted her through the ritual. Trusted her in the fight. But now he felt a fear he had never known before. His life was not his alone anymore. If she was hurt, he would feel it. If she died, so would he. The girl knelt in front of him, her glowing hair falling over her shoulders, her eyes locked into his, sharp as blades but filled with sadness. She drew another symbol into the soil. This time 2 shapes joined in a circle. She whispered slowly, making sure he understood. "Trust." "Test," John frowned. "Test," he repeated, unsure. The girl nodded once, her eyes never leaving his. "Trust or break," she said with effort. Her words hung in the air like a warning. Before John could respond, the ground shook. The jungle around them seemed to breathe, leaves trembling as a low rumble echoed. The girl stood quickly, her face pale. She pointed toward the darkness, then toward the stream behind them. 2 paths, 2 choices. She looked at John with urgency, her voice sharp this time. "You choose." John's chest tightened. He barely understood her world, and now she was asking him to make a choice that could mean life or death. The glowing bond on his hand pulsed faster, as if responding to the decision. It felt like his heart was no longer his own. It was tied to her, demanding he decide. The girl moved closer, placing her hand on his arm. Her voice softened, almost pleading. "Trust me or trust you." John froze. If he followed her path, he was trusting her instincts, her knowledge of this world. If he chose his own way, he was trusting his human survival, his own mind. But both paths carried danger. Both paths tested the bond. The roar came again, closer this time. John's pulse raced, his eyes locked on hers. Finally he whispered, "I'll trust you." The alien girl's eyes widened, then softened with relief. She took his hand firmly and pulled him toward the stream. Together they moved quickly, their steps in sync. John noticed for the first time that her grip gave him strength. The bond was not only a chain, it was also a shield. They ran until the roar faded into silence. When they finally stopped, John bent over, gasping for breath. The girl let go of his hand and studied him carefully. She touched the bond mark on his skin, glowing brighter now. Her lips formed a small smile for the first time. "Trust." "Strong," she whispered. John looked at her, half relieved, half afraid. "So that was the test," he said slowly. She nodded, then turned toward the jungle, her eyes sharp again. "More tests." "Come," John sighed, his body aching but his spirit restless. The bond between them pulsed, alive and undeniable. He realized this was no simple survival anymore. He was caught in a ritual that demanded his trust at every step, and each test would only grow harder as they walked deeper into the alien forest. The night seemed to close around them. The air grew colder, the glowing plants dimmed. John glanced at the alien girl walking silently beside him. Her glow returned faintly, enough to guide them, but not enough to erase the darkness. He wondered what other secrets she carried. He wondered what kind of trust would be demanded next. The jungle whispered again, low and endless. John clenched his broken rod, his steps slow but steady. The bond pulsed once more, like a heartbeat. In his hand, he was no longer just John, human explorer. He was John, the bonded one, tied to a mystery larger than he could understand. And somewhere in the shadows, unseen eyes followed, waiting for the bond to be tested again. The jungle grew quieter as John and the alien girl moved deeper into its heart. The strange sounds of predators faded, replaced by the steady hum of glowing plants. John felt the bond burning faintly on his hand, reminding him with every step that his life was no longer his alone. The girl walked ahead, her glow faint but steady, her movements filled with purpose. She was leading him somewhere, and he could sense it was important. Finally, they reached an ancient clearing. At the center stood a massive stone pillar covered in carvings. Symbols spiraled across its surface, glowing faintly under the alien starlight. John stared at it in silence, chill running down his spine. The pillar looked older than time itself, as if it had watched over countless generations. The alien girl stepped closer and placed her hand on the stone. Immediately, the carvings lit up brighter, spreading across the surface like fire. John gasped as strange shapes and figures came alive on the rock. They told stories without words. Battles, sacrifices, and rituals. He could feel the weight of history pressing down on him. The girl turned to him, her expression serious. She touched the glowing mark on his hand, then pointed to the pillar. Her lips moved softly. Symbol. Bonding. John frowned, his breath unsteady. He had survived the ritual, passed her test of trust. But this felt different. This was not survival anymore. This was destiny carved into stone. What does it mean? He whispered. The girl stepped closer, her silver eyes fixed on him. She pointed at a carving showing two figures standing side by side, light binding their chests together. Then she pointed at herself. And then at him. John's heart raced. She was telling him that their bond was not just spiritual, it was now written into the world itself. A symbol, eternal, unbreakable. He swallowed hard, fear and awe twisting inside him. Why me? He whispered again, almost to himself. The girl did not answer with words. Instead, she knelt before the pillar and traced a mark in the dirt, two circles connected by a single line, glowing faintly. She pressed his hand into the soil so the glow transferred onto his skin. For a moment, John felt heat surge through his body. The glow spread across his chest, creating a faint symbol just over his heart. John gasped, stepping back. The alien girl stood and revealed her own chest, there glowing faintly beneath her. Silver skin was the same mark, identical to his, shining softly like a hidden flame. John froze, stunned by the sight. Her voice was soft but carried the weight of truth. Now, we are bonded. The words struck him like thunder. He realized she had given him a part of herself, and in return, taken a part of him. There was no undoing it, no escape. Their lives, their fates, were tied together by a symbol older than either of them. The jungle stirred as if reacting to the ritual. A cold wind swept through the clearing, and the pillar glowed brighter. For a moment, John thought he heard whispers all around him, voices of the dead, or perhaps echoes of the past. He could not tell, but it chilled him to the core. The girl stepped closer and touched the glowing mark on his chest. Her touch was firm, steady, almost protective. Her eyes softened as she whispered again, "Bond strong. Never break." John stared at her, a thousand emotions storming in his chest. He wanted to trust her, to believe in this strange destiny. But another part of him screamed that he was losing control of his own life. Still, he could not deny the truth. The bond was real, the symbol was real, and he could feel its power deep inside. Suddenly, the ground trembled. From the shadows of the jungle came a sound low, deep, and angry. The girl's eyes flashed with fear, but only for a second. She raised her head and stood taller, as if ready to protect the bond with her life. John gripped his rod tightly, his chest burning with the symbol's glow. Dark shapes began to appear between the trees. Dozens of glowing eyes watching, waiting. The creatures had followed them, drawn by the ritual's light. John's pulse quickened. He realized the symbol was not just a mark of unity, it was also a beacon, calling enemies to them. The alien girl whispered sharply, "Fight together." John nodded. His fear replaced by determination, he stepped closer to her, the glow on his chest beating like a second heart. The girl's glow matched his, their symbols pulsing in rhythm. The creatures hissed and crept closer, their claws glinting in the faint light. But John felt something different this time. He felt power, flowing from the bond, guiding his strength. The first beast leaped, but John struck faster, his rod slamming with unnatural force. The girl moved beside him, her glowing hands blasting light that burned the shadows away. Together they moved like one, every motion in perfect harmony. The jungle roared with chaos, but the bond held them strong. The symbol was more than a mark, it was their weapon. When the last creature fell, silence returned once again. The jungle was broken, but alive. John stood breathing hard, his chest still glowing. He looked at the alien girl, her silver eyes. Calm but proud, she stepped closer, touching his mark once more. "Destiny begins," she whispered. John felt the truth in her words. The symbol was not just a bond, it was a promise. And promises always came with a cost. Asterisk. The jungle was silent after the battle, but silence on this world never lasted long. John stood still, his chest still glowing with the strange symbol of bonding. Beside him, the alien girl lowered her hand, the light fading from her skin. For a moment they both breathed heavily, united by exhaustion. But in the air, John felt something else. A weight, a pressure, like the world itself watching them. The girl looked around, her silver eyes sharp and restless. She whispered a word in her tongue, one John could not understand. But the fear in her tone was clear. She touched his arm and pulled him closer to the stone pillar. Her body tensed, as if preparing for what was coming. John opened his mouth to ask what was wrong. Before he could speak, the ground trembled beneath his feet. Leaves shook, branches cracked, and in the distance a roar split the night. This roar was not like the creatures they had fought before. This one was stronger, deeper, filled with rage. The girl turned to John, her voice sharp. "Enemy," she said. He gripped his broken rod tighter, his knuckles pale with strain. The glow of the symbol on his chest burned hotter, pulsing like a second heartbeat. He realized the bond was not only a link, it was a weapon waiting to be tested. From the jungle shadows they appeared, tall figures, armored with natural plates of bone, their eyes burning red. Unlike the beasts before, these enemies were organized. They moved with precision, their weapons made of jagged stone and glowing metal. John's stomach twisted. These were not animals, these were hunters. The alien girl raised her hand, her glow flaring again. She stepped in front of John, her stance protective. The hunters hissed and spread out, circling them like predators. One of them spoke in a harsh, guttural voice. Though John did not know the language, he understood the intent threat. The girl hissed back, her voice rising like steel. The hunters laughed, a cruel, echoing sound that filled the clearing. John's grip tightened on his rod, fear mixing with anger. He looked at her, his voice low. "What do we do?" She glanced at him, her eyes fierce. "Fight together," she whispered. Then the hunters charged. The first swung a blade made of glowing crystal. John blocked with his rod, the impact shaking his arm. The bond surged through him, filling him with strength beyond human limits. He shoved the hunter back, surprising even himself. Another lunged from the side, but the alien girl unleashed a wave of light. It struck the enemy's chest, sending him crashing into the soil. The clearing erupted into chaos. John moved with speed he did not know he had. Every strike he gave, every dodge he made, was guided by the rhythm of the bond. The girl's movements matched his perfectly. Together they fought as if they had trained for years. But the hunters were relentless. They attacked in groups, their weapons sharp, their bodies strong. John's arms ached, his breath burned, but he refused to fall. The symbol on his chest glowed brighter with every strike. He felt the girl's energy flowing into him, and he knew his strength was flowing into her as well. One hunter raised his blade to strike John down. The alien girl moved in front of him, her body glowing like fire. The blade cut into the light, but it shattered before it reached them. Her voice rang out in the clearing. "Bond protects." John's heart pounded. He realized the truth. Together, they were stronger than either of them alone. The hunters seemed to realize it too, their attacks growing more desperate. They hissed in frustration, their red eyes glowing hotter. Still, they fought, unwilling to retreat. Finally, John raised his rod high and slammed it into the ground. The glow of the bond exploded outward like a shockwave. The hunters were thrown back, their bodies crashing against trees and stones. The jungle itself shook from the force, leaves raining down like ash. Silence fell again, broken only by the hunters' pained growls. One by one, they retreated into the shadows. Their eyes glared from the dark, promising they would return. But for now, the clearing was theirs. John dropped to his knees, gasping for breath, his body trembling. The alien girl knelt beside him, her hand on his chest, calming the burning glow. Her eyes softened, though her voice remained firm. "Enemy. Stronger. Coming again." John nodded weakly, sweat dripping down his face. "They won't stop," he whispered. She shook her head slowly, her gaze fixed on the jungle. "No. They want Bond. Destroy it." John's heart sank. He realized their enemies did not just want to kill them. They wanted to break the bond, to erase it from the world. The hunters had not been random. They were guardians of the old laws, and by forming the Forbidden's bond, he and the alien girl had broken those laws. The girl touched her own glowing symbol, then his. Her voice dropped to a whisper, almost trembling. "Now. They hunt us both." John closed his eyes, his chest rising and falling heavily. He knew there was no turning back. The bond had made them powerful, but it had also painted a target on them. The enemy had struck, and they would strike again. The real war was only beginning. The jungle was restless after the hunters' retreat. Every leaf seemed to shiver. Every branch groaned under an unseen weight. John leaned against the ancient pillar, his chest still glowing with the bond's fire. His breath came heavy, sweat dripping down his face, but his spirit was alive with strange energy. The alien girl stood before him, her silver eyes searching his face, her glow soft but steady. She whispered slowly, her voice heavy with warning. "They come again. Stronger." John clenched his broken rod, his knuckles white. He nodded, though fear twisted in his stomach. He had faced death before, but this was different. This was destiny pulling him forward. The girl touched his chest where the symbol burned. She tilted her head, confusion flickering across her face. "Strange," she murmured, her voice low. "Your bond." "Stronger than mine." John frowned. "How can that be?" he whispered. She shook her head, her expression unreadable. "Human. Different." John stared at her in silence. Was it possible the bond had awakened something inside him she had not expected? He remembered the surge of strength during the fight, the way his strikes had carried power far beyond his body. It was not only her energy flowing into him. Something inside him was growing on its own. The ground rumbled again. From the shadows came another roar, deeper, more terrible than before. The girl's face hardened. "They send leader," she said softly. John tightened his grip on his weapon, his chest burning hotter. The bond pulsed. Faster, louder, as if it knew what was coming. The trees split apart, and the enemy appeared. A massive figure, armored in thick bone, its red eyes glowing like fire. It towered over the hunters they had fought before, its claws sharp as blades. Around it marched a dozen smaller hunters, moving in perfect rhythm. John's chest tightened. This was no simple attack. This was war. The alien girl raised her hands, her glow rising like fire. But John stepped forward, his chest blazing brighter than hers. She looked at him in shock. "Wait." "Too strong," she whispered. But John felt something different now. Fear was gone, replaced by a force he could not explain. It was as if every memory of struggle, every ounce of human will, had turned into power. The leader roared and charged, its claws swinging toward them. John raised his rod to block. The strike should have broken him, crushed his bones, ended his life. But the bond flared, and with it, his strength exploded. He shoved back, his body glowing, and the massive creature staggered. The alien girl gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief. No. Human not supposed. John ignored the pain shooting through his arms. He swung again, the rod cracking against the beast's armored chest. The sound echoed like thunder. The hunters hissed in rage, but the girl unleashed a wave of light, pushing them back, still. Her eyes never left John, watching the impossible unfold. The leader roared again, striking with both claws. John's chest burned hotter, the symbol glowing like fire. He caught the claws with his bare hands. For a moment the world froze. The alien girl's eyes widened, her glow flickering in disbelief. Impossible, she whispered. But John held firm, his muscles straining, his heart pounding like a drum. He felt no fear, only determination. He thought of Earth, of humanity, of survival. He thought of every time humans had fought against impossible odds, and somehow that spirit flowed through him now. It was not the ritual alone. It was his humanity that gave him strength, with a roar of his own. John twisted and hurled the beast to the ground. The earth cracked beneath its weight, dust and light exploding around them. The smaller hunters froze, their red eyes wide. They had expected weakness. They had expected failure. But what they saw was a human wielding power even the bond could not explain. The alien girl stepped forward, her face filled with awe. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "Human. Stronger than bond." John turned to her, his chest still burning. "What does it mean?" he asked breathlessly. She shook her head slowly, her silver hair glowing faintly. "It means you are different. You are dangerous." The leader rose again, its roar shaking the forest. But this time John did not step back. He gripped his rod, his body glowing brighter than ever. The alien girl stood beside him, her glow joining his. Together they shone like twin flames in the darkness. The hunters hesitated, their circle breaking. The leader growled. But even it seemed uncertain. For the first time, John saw fear in their eyes. Not fear of the girl, not fear of the bond, but fear of him, fear of a human. John raised his weapon and pointed it at them, his voice steady. "Leave," he said. The alien girl repeated his word in her tongue, louder, sharper. The hunters hissed, but one by one they retreated into the shadows. The leader snarled before disappearing into the dark. The jungle grew silent once more. John fell to his knees, gasping for air, his body shaking from the strain. The alien girl knelt beside him, her hand on his shoulder. Her eyes were filled with questions, but also with something new: respect. "You. Not just human," she whispered. "You. More." John looked at the glowing mark on his chest. He felt its heat, but he also felt something beyond it. Something that had not come from the ritual, something that had always been inside him. Human will, human strength, human defiance. He met her eyes, his voice low but steady. "Maybe that's what they fear." The girl nodded slowly, her gaze fixed on him. "And maybe that's what will save us." The jungle was silent once again, but it was no longer the silence of fear. It was the silence of something broken, something changed. John knelt on the ground, his chest still glowing with the bond's fire. The alien girl stood beside him, her silver glow dim but steady. They had survived, against enemies stronger than either of them alone. John's breath came heavy, but inside him was a strange calm. He felt the weight of exhaustion, but also the spark of victory. For the first time since crashing on this alien world, he felt he was not just surviving, he was fighting for something greater. The girl touched his shoulder gently, her voice soft. "Together. Strong." John looked at her, his eyes tired but steady. "Yes," he whispered. "Together." She smiled faintly, her first true smile since they had met. It was not just relief, it was trust. Something had changed between them, not only because of the bond, but because of choice. The jungle stirred as the wind shifted, carrying whispers through the trees. The hunters had retreated, but their eyes still watched from the shadows. John could feel it, the weight of their anger, the promise of their return. But now he did not fear them. They feared him. They feared what humanity could become. The girl motioned for him to follow. They left the ancient pillar behind and moved deeper into the jungle. The path grew narrow, the air cooler. At last they came to a high cliff overlooking a vast valley. John froze at the sight before him. The valley was filled with lights, dozens, no, hundreds of glowing fires moving like stars across the ground. At first John thought it was nature, but then he saw them: figures, tribes, entire settlements hidden in the valley. The alien girl raised her hand, pointing toward them. "My people," she whispered. John's heart pounded. He realized the truth. He was no longer just bonded to her. By saving her, by sharing the ritual, he had tied himself to her entire people. And now they would see him as either savior or threat. The choice would not be his alone. As they descended toward the valley, whispers rose from the tribes. Alien eyes turned to stare at him, silver, gold, and glowing blue. Some faces showed fear, others anger, a few curiosity. The girl stood tall, her hand still holding John's arm. She whispered to him, "Do not fear. You are with me." They entered the center of the valley, where a great stone circle rose from the ground. Elders stood waiting, their bodies glowing brighter than hers. Their eyes pierced John like blades. They spoke in a tongue he could not understand, their voices sharp with judgment. The girl responded quickly, her words fierce and steady. John could only watch, his heart pounding. The elders turned to him, their expressions hard. One of them pointed at the glowing mark on his chest. The symbol of bonding burned like fire in the dim light. Gasps rose from the crowd, whispers spreading like waves. The alien girl stepped forward, placing her hand on John's chest. "Bond," she said clearly. "Chosen." The circle erupted with voices, some furious, some amazed. John felt the weight of 1,000 eyes pressing down on him. But he did not step back. He stood firm, his chest glowing brighter. His voice was calm. "Steady, I am human," he said, "and I will not break." Though most could not understand his words, they felt his tone. The strength in his voice echoed through the valley. The girl repeated his words in her tongue, louder. The whispers grew softer, replaced by silence. The elders exchanged long glances. Finally, one of them spoke, his voice low and grave. "Bond. Forbiddance. But bond strong." He looked at John, then at the girl. "If bond survives, tribes survive." John's chest tightened. This was not only about them anymore. Their bond had become a symbol not of danger, but of hope. The girl touched his arm, her silver eyes calm. "New beginning," she whispered. The valley erupted with cries not of fear but of acceptance. The people raised their glowing hands. Light spread across the circle, brighter than the stars above. John stood in awe, realizing he was now part of something larger than he had ever imagined. He was no longer just a human lost on an alien world. He was a bridge between two species. As the night deepened, John looked at the alien girl beside him. Her smile was faint but real, her glow steady and warm. For the first time since meeting her, he felt peace. The bond no longer felt like a chain. It felt like a promise. The jungle would bring more enemies. The hunters would strike again. But now John knew the truth. He was not weak. He was not alone. Humanity carried a strength no ritual could create, a strength born from will, from defiance, from hope. The alien girl whispered one last time, her voice soft as the wind. "Together we rise." John raised his eyes to the stars. The bond burned like fire in his chest, and deep inside he knew this was not the end. This was only the beginning. Asterisk.